Well, it's presidents.
Not for the bracha.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna have to get a Shulchan Aruch. It's okay, I'll put it up on my phone. Let's see here.
He has
Okay.
it open.
What?
He has it open.
Yeah, he has like a straight one that was just has straight Shulchan Aruch, but yeah, it's enough. Put it outside. I'll put it there. Yerdea, Kuf, Sadik Vlad. Okay, so last time we spoke, a couple weeks ago, we began the sugya of Zainikim, process of Tara that Nisha goes through. Midiraisa, there's a chiluk between Nida and Zava. Nida does not need Zainikim. Nida goes straight 7 days. She goes to the mikvah. Doesn't have to have that din Zainikim. But a Zava, we're not going to get into the defining difference in what a Zava and Nida is. It'll take us down a rabbit hole. We'll leave it. The Shnayis, Ayin Shun. But essentially, there's this category called the Zava that has a special halacha that a Nida does not have. And nowadays, the halacha is that we apply all the dinim of a Zava to a Nida as well. What is the special din that a Zava has that the Nida does not? Is the din of Zainikim. What is Zainikim? It says in the Torah, V'im Torah mizoiva, v'safel shivas yamim v'acher titter. That the way she becomes tar is she has to be Torah mizoiva. Her flow has to become tar, meaning it has to stop. V'safel shivas yamim, she counts 7 days. The acher titter, and only then can she become tar. Can she go? Now she go and that's the din. And that's the din that nidas, that any woman who becomes a nida keeps nowadays. So last time we discussed the lead up to the Zainikia, the 5 days that have to lead up to it to avoid the problem of Pletishech Chazera, and then how you start that Zainikim, the motor, if you will, that carries you through Zainikim, that gives you that ability to nem on Tara. Zainikim is what we call a hefsek Tara. That pedika that's done right before the Zainikim start, that internal check that says that she was that there was nothing there at that time. She was tar. It stopped even for a moment. It stopped. That's enough to create a cheskas ein roya that carries her through the Zainikim. But now it has to happen on the Zainikim. What are those dinim? What takes place during the Zainikim? So the Gemara Nida as follows. Where things kind of start from, and we'll discuss from there. Mishnah. Zava, let's say. Shabbat Atzlin b'yom Rishon u'matzatar, b'yom Shvi u'matzatar. They do a bedika on the first day and the 7th day of the Zainikim. 1 and 7 is what the Mishnah says. It's a few machlekes. The Shar Yomim, the other days that did not check, it's a 3 machlekes. Rabbi Lazar says it's good, 1 and 7 is good. The Yeshua says, the Yeshua and Akiva both say it's no good, and they have different variations of how not good it is. But the bottom line is they both say it's no good. Rabbi Lazar of the opinion it is good. Zok the Gemara, Tanya, Rabbi Yosef, Shimon Aron, Nivin, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Kulan, Av Halacha, Rabbi Elazar. Zok comes Rabbi Yosef and Shimon to the rescue. They say Halacha, Rabbi Lazar. The Halacha is like Rabbi Lazar. You do not have to do bedikas every day of Zainikim. You do not have to do that internal check. 1 and 7 is enough. Halacha kedivrei Rabbi Lazar. Now, there's a machlekes in the Gemara. What about in Shitas Rabbi Lazar? Rabbi Lazar says 1 and 7. Okay, what about in Rabbi Lazar if you didn't do 1 and 7? Is Rabbi Lazar tchilasan af b'yishein saifan or saifan af b'yishein tchilasan? Can you do the beginning without the end, or can you do the end without the beginning, or do you need 1 and 7? Do you need those bookend checkings in order to kind of the din Zainikim? That is a machlekes halachah ma'isa between. That is a machlekes in the Gemara between Rabbi Chanina and Rav. Rav says he tchilasan af b'yishein saifan. You can have one bedika is enough. Rabbi Chanina says no. You need those. That 1 and 7 bedika. It's machlekes a person who we pass like. Do we pass him like machlekes Rishon? Do we pass him Chanina? Do we pass him Rav? And that is a major shaila between the Rishon and Psak Halacha L'Mais. Okay, Now, where to start here? Okay, before we get to the halacha ma'isa of, before we get to the halacha ma'isa of, what can we pass here? You good? Food? That's a sushi. Okay, so, so like this. The Tais was in Ksuvas. Where was it again? Tais is in Ksuvas. I'm blanking. Somewhere around here in the where's the Tais? Maybe I'm in the wrong place. Maybe it was not. One other thing, and then we'll give up. Oh, here it is. Okay. I am Bezim Al. Zog Taisif, the suffer law, La'atzma, the Gemara says. And it's a drasha that a woman's supposed to count during Zayin Akiyim. That's what it says. She counts. La'atzma, the Gemara says. You trust her, right? We're at Klagado. Just know if there's one practical thing to take out all this, you're not your wife's mashgiach during Zayin Akiyim. The suffer law, La'atzma state. She does it. It's on her own. Trust her, and you allow her to do it. Okay. Vim timer. Am I in Mivrechazov al Sfirosa Commission Varchan al Sfiros Omer? Daksiv Safalo. Fact Toistus, why don't you make a bracha? Why does an Isha who's counting her Zainakim make a bracha on her Zainakim? It says in the Torah Safalo. When do you make a bracha for counting? Another time make a bracha for counting. Sfiros Omer. What does it say in the Torah? It says, right, it says you should count. That's all it says. Count. We darshan from that it's a mitzvah to count. And because it's a mitzvah to count, we make a bracha on it. So if I says it's a mitzvah for her to count. So if it's a mitzvah for her to count, why should she not? Why should the Zava not be counting on her on Sfira just like by Sfira Soimer?
Be counting. Is it by the Bedika or it can be just any time?
Pasha says there's nothing with Bedikas yet at Taisus. We'll get to that maybe. But Pasha says anytime in the day she should get up and say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Al Sfiras Zayin Akiyim Hayoim Yom Echad Zayin Akiyim. And that's it. It should be on your base. Why is she not doing that? Zog Taisus. The Yesh Leimer. Right? It'd be a nice moment every day during Zayin. You get together, you count, answer Amen. Right? Good stuff. Yesh Leimer. You only make a bracha by Yovel. There's another example of counting. It's counting up the Yovel years. That Bezin makes a bracha every year. You can count. Now, hey, you may have a problem that you forget nights of Sfiras Omer. That's a you problem. But it's in your power to count up Sfiras Omer. There's nothing stopping you, right? It's not out of your control. So you can count Sfiras Omer. There's nothing in the way. But by her, if she sees Dam during Zayin Akiyim, it's not in her control, basically. If she's Dam Zayin Akiyim, it's going to mess her up. So it's out of her control, Zaktaisus. So if it's out of her control, Zaktaisus, Ain law, and here's a very key, what the word is in this Taisus, the Shaila Gears in this Taisus. We have the word in front of us, Ain law limnois. She shouldn't count. Now, why is that as far not to count? Maybe that's as far like saying, okay, you can't make a bracha if you can't be confident you're gonna get through. Similar to like people say about Sfiras Omer for women. If they're not going to get through, they're sure they're not going to make it. Don't make a bracha.
The bracha the minute before the next day starts.
No, the point is he's saying even the whole Zayin came. It's a build-up. So the 7 days. He's not saying just that day, right? Yeah.
But that's Einus.
Well, no, but he's saying, even though it's not a question of Einus, not that it's her fault, but the point is saying that since you don't know, since you're not in control of it getting to where it's supposed to get, the mitzvah is to count 7 days. So it's not in control you're not in control to get where it's supposed to getting. We can't be making a bracha on it.
By Sphira because they may come to forget. Like that on their own, they may forget. But I'm saying by the time if for some reason they can't.
I don't think that's as far. Even if a person's a total minus, the point it's a one block of the mitzvah, at least like certain sheet does. And if you're not going to get there, don't do it. Don't get involved in something. You're not going to find the mitzvah.
Yeah, they won't get there.
Doesn't matter why. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it matters why they won't get there. The point is that there's a mitzvah to count 40 days, and you may not finish it.
But isn't there a story that women should not count Sphira because they may not complete it?
Yeah, exactly. It's a Dimion Balma. I don't want to get too caught up in that, but because it's not as far by women, it's such as my grandma. Just bring it out as a much Balma. But Tais is saying here a different svar. Nothing with oines, nothing with your fault. They're just saying that if it's out for Adrab, he's saying that since you might be an oines, it could be completely out of your control. You can't finish this mitzvah. We don't pash this as far. We don't make a brach on it. And that should be, and that's the girsa. That's the girsa of Taisus in other places, and that's the girsa the Shlosh says in Taisus. That's as far not to make a bracha.
Yeah, that's what because sometimes people put out the bread in case they don't find shiur bracha v'atola.
It's a similar idea, but there's a chiluk between the two. But maybe we'll save that for when we get closer to Pesach season. But there's a similarity between the ideas. But here Tais is saying we don't go bracha because you're not in control that you are going to finish. But machmasis, the Shloh Paskins, the Shloh says that a woman during Zaynakiyim should takaseh hayom mechel Zaynakiyim. You can stand up and say it. He may say bracha without shaving mouths. Maybe he doesn't say that, but he says she should be counting. Tais is a svar where I don't make a bracha, but the Torah still said v'safrla. She's supposed to count. So unbelievably, the Shloh says a woman is supposed to count. Hayom mechel Zaynakiyim.
Just look at one mitzvah, or it's a mitzvah for each day to count separately, because the point of Tosfos would sound like it's one big mitzvah, and that's the reason.
Right. That's why he's saying if that's the var.
Serious, where there's not,
Right.
whether it's separate mitzvahs, then.
L'chayra, if Taisus is saying that the messing up of one day, unless he means what Yechiel thought he meant, and whatever reason his question is not a question, that the day itself might get messed up. Why not last minute? Even last minute, we're going to do Ge'ev Shel Tzamtzin. You can't know for sure, but maybe that's what Taisus meant. But Machas says that's what the Shloh says. Yehuda has a tshuva to a rav in his time, as he was going around, and he was instructing the women in his community, Kalas, to count that they should be counting Zaynakiyim. Kamina Gashla, they should be counting Zaynakiyim. And the Yehuda writes, he says, Afal Pi, you're a tremendous tzaddik, and your burning desire, you have an insatiable desire for mitzvahs, and that's why you're doing this. But he can't get behind this. Behind doing this, he thinks the Shloh is incorrect. He explains why. He says that the first of all, he says if there was a mitzvah to count Zaynakiyim, he said so some of the minor mitzvahs would have to say this. It's not in Rambam, it's not in Ramban, it's not anywhere in any of you can find them in Chinuch. It's not in Chinuch. It's not the minor mitzvahs don't count this as one of Tari mitzvahs. So where is the mitzvah of Sfir Zaynakiyim? They count Sfir Soimer. Where is the mitzvah of Sfir Zaynakiyim? It says it can't be that there's an actual mitzvah to count. But says the Yehuda I sold okay, but what's pshat in Taisus? Taisus asked the kasha, why not make a bracha? Taisus' only answer seems to be as far in bracha. You can't make a bracha because it might got messed up, right? Says the Yehuda, no. The lashon of Taisus is he doesn't say that that's machlekes is in Girsa, but l'chayr they're having machlekes in the Girsa and Taisus. He says that Taisus is telling you a svara why not to count kla, not a svara in bracha. What's this for? He says, what's Taisus telling you? What is this for? What she might see and she might get it messed up. Maybe like Yechiel was tiding. Let her count in the last minute, or like Moshe is pointing out. So then at least each day should be good, even if you maybe not mess up one day. But why does it mess up every day from her making a bracha? So says the Ned Yehuda. This is what Taisus means. When the Torah says by Sfira Soirim, the Torah could have very easily just said, go to 50 days after Pesach, because Yom Tov Atzeres. After bringing the Omer, 50 days later, Mimachas Shabbos, 50 days later is the Yom Tov of Atzeres, and finish. There's nothing being added and telling you Usfartin Mimachas Shabbos that count up 7 weeks, right? 49 days and 7 weeks. There's nothing added by that because it happens automatically. It's just time passing. So just saying the Torah 50 days later is the Yontiv of Shavuos, whatever we call it, at that point. By Yovel, 50 years later, it happens automatically. So just say 50 years later is Yovel. There's nothing added by the Torah saying count. Visvarta. Therefore, we understood that Usvarta means count as a mitzvah. There is a mitzvah, there's an active mitzvah to count. But he says, but by a zava, there is a point in Usfarta. Even you can't just say 7 days later go to the mikvah because it's not automatic. And 7 days later go to the mikvah. You have to be aware of what's going on. You have to be checking. You have to be making sure that she doesn't see dam to be size to design a kiyam. So since you have to be checking, that changes the taich in the pasuk, the safra. That we automatically assume sfira means count. We think it's like counting sheep in bed because we're used to sfira soimer means counting. Sphira is saying doesn't necessarily mean counting 1, 2, 3, 4. Sphira means being aware of a process, being aware of the process that includes sometimes 1, 2, 3, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes it means just awareness, right? So Zaktan Yehuda by Zava, where it's very logical to say that the pasuk is just telling you be aware of what's happening, because you have to be aware of what's happening. There's an Indian of being aware. You have to be checking. You have to making sure that you're tired, you get through. Therefore, that changes the whole taich in what Usfartim means. Usfartim doesn't mean count. That's the pshat in the Giras of Taisvus. Since Taisvus reads as follows beautifully: the aim of Varchin. You only make a bracha. It's automatic, and therefore, since it's automatic, there was no point in the Torah saying count. The fact that the Torah says count makes it a mitzvah. You make a bracha. If she sees blood during Zainakim, it will be soiserit. There's no mitzvah to count, because the Visartim now, because the Safra takes on a new definition. V'safra just means be aware of what's happening during Zainakim. It's very nice machlekes between the Noid Yehuda and the Shla. Minig Yisrael is Shalei Kashla. Minig Yisrael is like the Noid Yehuda that we don't have our women counting Yom Yom Echad L'Zainakim. Someone wants to come around, they want to be makbid Kamina Kashla, go for it. Can't stop you. But the Noid Yehuda was not a fan of it, even though he said it's a Chassidus and it's a Tzidkus. He was not a fan of pushing it as part of the college class education. Well,
Because it puts the pressure on them.
no, he just said this is not the pshat. It's wrong. He said the shlah is incorrect, and therefore was not a fan of pushing things that are
There's
incorrect.
no point in doing it extra.
And he's saying it's not a homer; it's a homer shus. That's what he held, obviously. And okay, he said, but he holds that the Rishonim are clearly not like the Shlah. I don't know if he would say that it was just him against the Shlah. He probably would have rather that. But he's just saying, well, first of all, maybe like his Gerson Taisus, but also like he points out, he says none of the Rishonim count this as any mitzvah. Whereas a cheluk of another mitzvah, it's not mentioned. So why isn't it? There is no need to count. Okay, so what is there though? What is this Fesach? Let's say fine, you don't go as far as the Shlah you're supposed to count. So what is the tzibur at Torah? What is there telling you when it tells you to be count? Be aware. What does that mean? To be aware of who's going on Zainakim. So this in this understanding, it becomes a machlekes between the Mil Tzedakah and Shar Peskin. Beis David, I think, is the one who's cholik on the Mil Tzedakah. Mil Tzedakah says that even though it doesn't go as far as the Shlah, it says a woman has to be what? You're 10. We had someone here who was 10, and who was 9, and then Chaim Yehuda came. That person had to leave. So now because we couldn't have 10, so now you're here, someone else has to leave, and it was just a matter of waiting to see who it is, but she has got it. Go ahead. All right, you just missed a Geschmack of Yehuda Chesky, but you'll have to have to get it from the oil or from the recording. But okay, but we're moving on now. We're talking about what the Torah says that a woman has to count the suffer the Shovivim. She's got to count 7 days. So what is that Indian? What is that Indian of counting? So far we had a machlekes between the Shlah and the Yehuda. Is it mamish counting, hayom yom echad l'zainakim, or is it being aware? Now we're going to talk in the Shittas Noid Yehuda as being aware. What does that mean? What is the awareness that's required? So Mil Tzedakah says that there's an Indian that an Isha can't be Mesiach Das from the Zainakim. Now it doesn't mean she has to constantly be thinking Zainakim. That would be and give that to someone who's OCD. That's going to be rough. 7 days straight. It's bad. Other halachas are hard enough. They're going to give her 7 days straight of no Hesach Das from Zainakim. She'll get no sleep. But it does. But it means that generally he's saying that there has to be an overall awareness of Zainakim. And Lamashal he paskins halacha l'maisa that if, let's say, a woman had no idea what was Zainakim, but she did everything that would be required for Zainakim. She did her hefsek, she did this, whatever. She decided to do this stuff, but she had no idea what was Zainakim. Or more commonly, what may come up, although this one you can get out of a little easier. But let's say a woman did things, but thought the Zainakim were over. Right? Come home from work one day, dead tired, but oh man, as soon as you open the door, it's trouble. There's something. There's just like something is about to drop. All right, so you get out and think, go into the room, Zainakim are over. I can't believe it. Whatever, it's over. Bad bedika, something happened. Whatever. okay, whatever, shoes get thrown, stuff like that. It's all good. But then things calm down. You're like, okay, so why is Zainakim over? I hope none of this is giving another things that I'm talking about actually things that happen in my home. I'm not. I'm just exaggerating for the sake.
That's something you deal with as.
Okay, I've never heard of shoes getting, but there is a general. I do get it from some people, and I know the feeling sometimes when you pause my child, like, oh man, this is going to be my fault. Now it's no good to be. This is going to be my fault. Somehow, on a certain level. So okay, but for all the single fellows, it's not that bad. All right, the joke always is that marriage is not as good as single guys think it is, and not as bad as married people make it out to be. It's somewhere. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, after things calm down, you're like, hey, so why do we think what happened to Zainakim? Why do we have to start over? Oh, that happened. Look in the bathroom. There's a bdika. It's no good. Whatever. Take a look. You're like, I don't know. Seems all right to me. I'll take it to the Rav. You guys later take it to the Rav. Good, no problem. Okay, but now she was convinced that Zainakim were over. She was Mesiach Das and the She was basically, I'm ready to start over. She, whatever went on, but she stopped her Zainakim, had the Das that the Zainakim were over. So is that a problem? Miltzadaka says, yeah. Says that's not considered the suffer state. She has to be in the matzav, in the mindset. Her mind has to be thinking Zainakim.
Still in the mindset. She's on day one.
No, she's before Hefsek. She's before Zainakim. She's the one who Hefsek. No, she's not even on day one. We would even like the Miltzadaka. Many people want to say, okay, but in that case, she knows Misa. She knows it may not be good. It's piling up other frustrations from the day. She knows that it may not be that it's actually really over. But in that case, but let's say Taka, the first case I gave, which is more rare, so it's not common, but it's happened. Where she didn't even realize that it was Zainakim, and it happened to be whatever, there was a hefsek done, and she's part of it, but she thought it was totally not Zainakim. So Miltzadaka says that cannot be. The same way, similar like a person might think on Pesach. You're always aware that it's Pesach. You may not be thinking Pesach the whole time, but you're aware. Your stomach's telling you, different things are telling you. Sukkahs, even when you're not in a sukkah, you're aware it's sukkahs, right? So it's the same type of idea. There's just a certain awareness. But if she thinks this is a weekday, this is a regular weekday, this has nothing to do with Zainakim, that's not the sufferer. The sufferer, yeah, we disagree with the shla. The shla says you got to count. We don't agree with that. You don't have to count. But you have to, the sufferer is telling you have to be cognizant of it. That's the whole kind of the Yehuda back, is that it's not a mitzvah sphira, but what is it? What is the Torah telling you? Be aware of what's happening so you don't get messed up. That awareness is required to a certain extent. He says you have to at least be aware of the fact that it is Zainakim. That is his mahalach. The place can though argue with this mahalach and halacha l'maisa is b'diavad. We would be makel, not like the Miltzadaka, that you don't have to start over Zainakim in any of those cases. Although it's recommended that a woman just be aware of the fact that it's Zainakim in order to kind that shita. But other place can kind of that no. The v'safrla, how are we kind of v'safrla, and it's a complicated Gemara in Nida. That we're just going through, that I touched a little bit on, that brings out this point. But the kiyum of the safrila is mukuyim to the bedikas. The checking, what is this bedikas come? Why do we have bedikas during Zainakim? Bishlama hefsek tara, we said already. We said hefsek tara is there to change the muchzakas, to make it a cheskas roya. What is bedikas do during Zainakim? One bedika a day, bedikas 1 and 7. What is that? That is how she's mekayim. Her sphere during Zainakim is mekuyim ayidei the bedikas. That's what the base of it says. And that's here mekayim the Indian midrash. That's on a mitzvah. We're going not in the world of the shla right now. We're going in the Yehuda's world. That the safrila is just there to make sure it is a maintenance halacha. It's a maintaining the Zainakim to make sure you get there. At the Ad B'Tara, the maintenance you do during Zainakim is by doing these bedikas, by checking. And that is the kiyum of the safrila the best of it says, and like I said, at least b'diavad, that's who we would go halach l'maisa. If you want to know the taich and the pasuk, the safrila shivas yamim v'achatitar pasuk in Mitzvah that the best of it is telling you that kiyum is your mekayim b'safrila. That's my day the b'dikas, but it's a little bit, it's both really. It's like it's an awareness of the Zainakim. It's not necessarily to the point in the tzedakah you can't have hesed hadas, but the idea is to be doing something active to make sure you're not saying dumb. Whereas the rest of the month, what we tell the general advice that we give women is ignorance is bliss. There's no, you have Cheskes Torah, ignore whatever's happening unless you are facing overwhelming evidence to the opposite. But otherwise, don't be making trouble for yourself. That's generally the advice that's given. You don't have to. So why are you doing anything in terms of checking or even looking? During Zayin Akiyim, you're supposed to be more cognizant of just what's going on. What is the matzav? Am I tar? Am I nucky? Am I continuing the process of Zayin Akiyim? Okay. With that Haggadah, now we come to some of the dinim of the Zayin Akiyim. A few minutes left. So the first din one of the first din that we come to in Shulchan Aruch when it comes to Zayin Akiyim is a minhag that the Ramah brings down. The minhag is, he says, is to wear white. Women are required all day white underwear during Zayin Akiyim, and the idea is, again, it is based on this type of concept that the whole point of a safel, where does this come from? Why are they wearing white during Zayin Akiyim? Because the safel is about being just more aware about what's happening, and one way that you make yourself more aware is the white begadim just allow you to recognize that what's happening. You'll be more noticeable when there is an issue. I've discussed this in the past, but I'll just mention it quickly that there is a big discussion amongst poskim. What about wearing a white pad during Zayin Akiyim? What's the point of what's the chacham here? What's the question? Who cares if it's a pad? What's the difference? Well, the major mile of wearing a white pad is that a pad is a davar, like many poskim, is a davar shein makabel tumah. It's something that's disposable, and therefore it's not makabel tumah. A davar shein makabel tumah has major kulas when it comes to hilchos nida. We're not going to get it right now. I don't want to chazir the whole none, but if you go back over the earlier shiurim, you remember that whenever you're dealing with a something that would only make her need to be drabbana. Now here I have to point out one very important rule that people common misconception about Zayin Akiyim, and the name is what leads to this misconception. People think Zayin Akiyim means totally clean. There can't be a speck of blood. It's not true. Zayin Akiyim there could be dam during Zayin Akiyim like there could be any other time during the month. Zayin Akiyim means there can't be enough blood to have to force her to restart the process to become a nida. So what does it mean then, Nikiyim then? Of course, she can never become a nida anytime during the month. What's special about Zayin Akiyim? What's special is the safla. What's special is that she has to be aware of it, just to be checking for it, as opposed to the rest of the month she can just ignore it. But it's the same gedarim, the same rules that apply the rest of the month apply during Zayin Akiyim. And for her to get messed up during Zayin Akiyim, she would need either enough dam to be considered a period. She would need or on white, davar makabel tumah, bigger than a penny, as we've discussed at length in past shiurim. She would need those same rules to cause her to start over Zayin Akiyim. Therefore, if during Zayin Akiyim she finds a spot of blood on a davar she'eina makabel tumah, she'll be fine. Doesn't have to start over just because of that. She may have a hard time getting those bedikas. If that's going on, often she'll have a hard time getting the bedikas that she needs to get, and those bedikas can make her, a bad bedika can make her start over. But it doesn't. That's not necessarily follow. It could clear up. So if she just sees a spot on a davar that's not makabel tumah, she'll be fine regardless of the size of it. So therefore, there's a major mila in potentially for like some poskim wearing a white pad. It's a davar she'eina makabel tumah. Therefore, it doesn't matter the size of the spot, as opposed to if she was wearing white underwear that's makabel tumah, a spot bigger than a penny would mess her up.
I thought the whole point is that she's supposed to wear white underwear.
Why would the point be to wear white underwear?
So that we know what's going on. Isn't that the whole point?
Because there are most of the minhag is to wear white.
Right,
Yeah.
but maybe the point of wearing white is just to be aware of what's going on. You could be aware of what's going on with white pads just as well. If the point is white, it shouldn't matter. White is white.
So
Right.
you could technically put toilet paper there also.
Theoretically, yeah, technically. Now, some poskim still don't like it. They say the minhag of the Ramah is to wear white begadim. That's the minhag. So we want begadim. That's the minhag. But there's no reason why that should be if the point of the minhag is just to be aware of what's happening. White is white. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter that's a davar she'eina makabel tumah. Who knows what that would dafka you want it to be a davar makabel tumah is a little bit, to me, is a little different if he is. What?
Same idea, the white sheets. That's also like keep in mind.
Yeah, it's the same idea. The white sheets is the same minhag, yeah. The white sheets is brought down by the Ramah, but again, you have to remember in the Ramah they didn't have the same style underwear that we have nowadays, so the sheets were more relevant. As opposed to nowadays, you're not going to kind of get it on the sheets without getting it, so it's not as relevant. Okay, that is a shiloh. So, there's different personally, if my mahal has, if Nisha has a reason why she wants to wear a white pad, it's fine. I don't necessarily go with it like Shayla Chachila. It's uncomfortable for her. But if it'll help Nervin, whatever else, it's fine. Okay, but that is one of the important things that has to be done during Zainakiyim. The other very important thing is the bedikas that have to be done that we've been talking about at length. That, like the base David, is the kiyum of a safra, the bedikas. We saw in the Gemara, it's a machlekes. Do you need 1 and 7? Do you need bookended bedikas? You definitely need hefsek tara. This is really important. This is one of those important things that people sometimes mess up, and I don't know how sometimes. I don't know why it's still becoming a problem, but there are some like situations where for whatever reason it's just not clicking. That this is what the minimum requirement is. So it's really important to make sure you have that straight, or more importantly, that your wife has it straight, what the minimum requirement is. The minimum requirement is hefsek tara. Hefsek tara is before the Zainakim even start. It's not day one. That's the tailgate show is hefsek tara, right? Then there's the kickoff is day one, and then there's closing is day 7. That is the psak of the Mechaber L'Slach the minimum that you need. He says ein lahaka, you should not be making any less than that. You need hefsek tara. Addition to that, day 1, and then day 7. There are shitas based on the shitas Rav and the Gemara that just hefsek tara and 1 bedika during the Zainakim is enough. But we only use that really b'shas tchak. The Mechaber says otherwise ein lahaka, it should be. You need at least day 1 and day 7. L'chachila, we paskin that you should have every day of the Zainakim. Not only that, the Shulchan Aruch paskins based on the Shitas Harikech that's brought down that l'chachila you should have shachris and bein arba'im. You should have in the morning and the afternoon, twice a day, always during the day. If it's already pashkia, it's already tseis, and she's like, "Oh man, I didn't do my second bedika today. Forget about it. Just wait until tomorrow. It's not going to do anything. There's no point. You missed it. It's fine. It's good. Just wait until tomorrow. Don't bother doing it at night, because always the Gemara says sphere be a mama. Remember the kiyum. What is the bedika? Bedika is a kiyum of the sufferla. That's its point. That's where it comes in. Sphere, the Gemara says, as opposed to sphere sa'omer, sphere zainakim or sphere be a mama is always done during the day, and therefore bedikas during zainakim are only going to be done during the day. There's no point in ever doing them at night. The bedikas day 1 and day 7. And we try not to be makel any more than unless it's a serious shas adchak. A couple of interesting halachas that I'll close with. One is the Noid Yehuda as follows. The Shitas HaMechaber, again, like we just mentioned, is that you should not be making less than day 1 and day 7. And the Mechaber says, if it's day 1, what happens is sometimes when you do 1 and 7, sometimes we'll tell there will be Shas Adchak K'diavad, where each is having trouble getting through the Zainakim, something's going on, maybe there's something, whatever. There might be circumstances that are going on where Rav will tell her, just do 1 and 7, even though l'chachila you're supposed to do 2 a day, or at least 1 a day, but now just do 1 and 7. Again, hefsek tara, 1 and 7, but do that 1 and 7 and that's it. Don't do any more. Now the problem with what the potential issue with that, the pitfall, is that by the time day 7 comes around, she's not used to it. She's out of practice of doing the bedikas. And it's been a week, and she forgets that day 7. And then she may wake up either at night or the next day and be like, oh shoot, I didn't do my bedika on day 7. Now what? And the psak of the Shulchan Aruch is 1 and 8 is not good. It's got to be 1 and 7. It's got to be Zayin Nekiyim. It's got to be a block of 7 days, that of 1 and that of 7, bookended. It cannot be 1 and 8. So the psak based on the Mechaber, and again, we will be pretty machmir on this unless it's a pretty big shas adchak, is to start over again. That your day 8 now becomes essentially day 1, and you got to start your Zainakim over again. You don't want to ever be in that situation. That will certainly be your fault if that happens. So you want to avoid that situation at all costs. So you got this psak that day 1 and day 8 do not combine. Comes along the Yehuda that says an interesting svara. The Yehuda says this, that day 1 and day 8 do not combine, is not because you need 1 and 7 necessarily. It's because 6 days apart is too much. It has to be at most 5 days apart. Okay, a nice svara. What's the difference? He says, if let's say she did 1, 4, and 8, that would be fine, he says. That's Zainakim. It's not a block of 7, but you didn't have 5 days between each bedika, so it's okay. Those bedikas can combine to create a Zainakim. It can't be 1 and 8. You can't have 6 days in between the two bedikas. But if she did a bedika day 1, and then day 4, and then day 8, that would be fine, and that can combine, and you can go to the mikveh that night. And for this reason, many rabbanim tell people, don't tell people 1 and 7. They tell people 1, 4, and 7, or 1, 3, and 7, in order to avoid this potential problem. If they want to cut down bedikas, they'll still keep it as 1, 3, or 1, 4, and 7, in order to avoid this potential problem of missing that day 7 and getting a day 8. One other halacha, a psak from Rabbi Yashiv that I've used a number of times. It can be a real save. It can be a real savior. Is like this. Let's say a woman did a bedika, should have siktara. She did bedika day 1. Bedika day 7 comes day 7. She forgets to do her bedika, but she's supposed to go to the mikveh that night. That's normally what's going to happen. So a lot of times what'll happen is she might forget, but suddenly, like when does she start thinking about preparing for the mikveh after shkia? Right, when it's starting to get nighttime, she remembers, oh shoot, it's after shkia. I forgot to do my bedika. What do I do now? Right, so she quickly does it during Bein Hashmashos before it says, let's say, I don't know, 25 minutes after shkia. But now she's like, oh no, but it was after shkia. I'm only supposed to do bedika during the day. So says Rabbi Yashiv as follows: since it's a suffix yon, right? Because it might be Bein Hashmashos is a suffix yon, suffix laila. So it's suffix yon. And many Rishonim paskin, you only need 1 bedika anyway, right? It's a machlekes in the Gemara. Rav says only 1 bedika. It's a sveika dedina. The mechaber says you shouldn't be mekel unless in 1 and 7. But it's a suffix. There are Rishonim who say 1 bedika is enough. So since you have some Rishonim who say 1 bedika is enough, and just the day 1 would be enough, and she did a second bedika on Bein Hashmashos, which is a suffix yoim, it might be day. It says sfek sveika, you could be mekel, and you can consider that you could be matar based on that, and go to the mikvah. For many years when I was passing, I did not know this Shovivim, and it was a shot. But since I've known it, it's been, like I said, helpful in a number of occasions where this can happen. When you should do bedika day 1, chapter around Bein Hashmashos, and you can be mekel with sfek sveika to Lara to that night, and then be the hero. All right, I'll hold it here. Perm kata. See everyone in a month. Good times. I mean, we'll have share before then, but